Hi, I'm Trish. Welcome to the Gig House Kitchen. Today we're going to be making bread rolls and tear and share bread. So let's get down to it. As always, before we start, we need to do a couple of things. Firstly, we need to light the oven. So if you have a gas oven, that is gas mark 7, and if you have an electric oven, that is 220 degrees centigrade. Secondly, we need to prepare the ingredients. We're going to be making a quick bread dough. So I have here 500 grams of strong bread flour. I have a teaspoonful of salt, and I have 7 grams of fast-acting dried yeast. I also have 250 mils of tepid water. That's to allow the yeast to act quickly. Right, let's start mixing the bread. As you can see, I've got my flour in a large metal bowl, and I have my trusty wooden spoon. So the first thing I'm going to do is add the salt. I'm then going to add the dried yeast. I'm going to get my wooden spoon, I could use my hands, and just basically stir the two ingredients in, combining them fully. Some escaped. There we go. Okay, I've also got the water here, so I'm literally going to add the water all in one go. Now, in a minute, I may need to add a little bit more water, but we'll just see how we go. Okay, now this is one of those amounts of flour that is quite difficult to keep in the bowl, so just exercise a bit of patience and caution and you'll get there. Now I can see from that I'm going to need a little bit more water. Right, my trusty assistant has just given me some more water, so I'm going to add it. Now different flours absorb different amounts of water, so water is literally just a guide. This now I think is coming up well. Now the most important thing to remember about bread is it's one of those things that it's great to be sticky or tacky, i.e. when you touch it, it feels very sticky and sticks to your hand. This is a little bit wet, but what I'm going to do is turn it onto the work surface and knead the flour into it rather than mixing the flour into it. I put plenty of flour down and flour my hands, and then I'm going to put my mixture out onto the table. Bread is such a lovely thing to make. If you've had a bad day at work or you're a bit fed up or down, I think actually making some bread is great therapy. Now what I'm going to do is basically knead the bread. This is to strengthen the gluten, which is the protein in bread, and also to redistribute the carbon dioxide which the yeast makes as it ferments in the bread. So there's two ways that you can knead that I particularly like. One is into the middle and push, into the middle and push, into the middle and push, into the middle and push. Or you can do what I like to call the hairy biker, which is push with one hand and then push with the other. This one's particularly good if you don't want to add an awful lot of flour to the mixture. To strengthen the gluten, it's very important that you knead for at least 10, possibly 15 minutes. Okay, now I've been kneading for about 10 minutes and I can feel that the bread is about ready. It's lovely and soft and it's not sticky at all. I'm going to use the bread for two things. I'm going to make some little bread rolls and I'm going to make some tear and share bread. So the first thing I'm going to do is actually cut it in half because I'm going to make, each half is going to make a different item. I have everything I need here to make the bread rolls. And the first thing I'm going to do is to cut my bread into 6 because I'm going to make 6 rolls. I've just put it out into a sausage shape and I've got my palette knife which I'm going to flour, and then I'm going to cut in half and cut each one into 3. To make sure they're even, I'm going to roll them into rounds and then put them next to each other so I can gauge the sizes. Now when you roll, it's very easy to do. You basically push down into the work surface and then relax your hand and you get a nice little round. push down into the work surface and then relax your hand. Now it's quite important that you don't have any flour down when you do it, otherwise it will slip and you won't be able to get your nice round shape. Now I can already see that this one is a giant and this one is a tiddler, so I'm going to realign and see how I go. Now the rolls I've chosen to do are little poppy rolls, which I think are quite cute and they look great if you serve them with soup or whatever. They're very, very quick and easy to do and they always look really good at the table. I have my 6 perfect rounds and I have my nice greased tray. So what I'm going to do now is put the rounds onto the tray. I'm going to leave some space in between and then I'm going to flour the palm of my hand and I am going to press down to make sort of baps really. Now it's quite important that they are roughly the same size. They don't have to be perfect, but same size, roughish is quite nice. And then I am going to get my trusty kitchen scissors and I'm going to put 4 snips in each one. This is to make the sort of poppy shape. It's quite quick, as you can see. The next thing is to flour your finger and press in the middle to make the poppy centre. Here I have my egg wash. Now an egg wash is literally an egg, some salt and just a teaspoon of water, and mix it up really, really well with the fork so that you don't have any sort of bits of egg sticking together and congealing on your bread roll. Now once that's nicely mixed, I get my pastry brush and I'm just going to egg wash the rolls nice and evenly, particularly the centre, because in a minute I'm going to put some seeds in the middle to give a real poppy effect. Once I have finished these, I'm going to let them rise for about 20 minutes in a warm place and then they'll be ready for cooking or baking. There we are, nice and evenly coated. And now I'm going to get some seeds. Now you could use poppy seeds or you could do what I'm doing, which is just using some sunflower seeds and sprinkling them in the middle. And there we have it. Poppy rolls ready to rise and put in the oven. While the poppy rolls are rising, I'm going to show you how to make the tear and share bread. First of all, good idea to give it a little bit of a knead, because if the dough has been lying about for a few minutes, it's going to carry on rising. So give it another little knead to make sure it's flat. And then I'm going to put some flour down and I'm going to get a rolling pin and I'm going to flour the rolling pin and start rolling out. You will really notice that unlike pastry, bread dough really snaps back. It's like it's elastic. That's that gluten which is in the bread flour. So you have to put quite a bit of pressure on it and it might feel like you're not getting anywhere for a while, but eventually it will start to roll out. Already I can hear little pops going on, little popping, and that is the carbon dioxide actually. The yeast is obviously working, which is a relief, because if your yeast is dead, you have a very flat bread. I'm going to roll it out into as best square as I can, bearing in mind it's fighting me back all the way. It needs to be about 3/4 of my rolling pin. This quick bread dough is so quick to make and it's actually very successful. Slight problem is that you have to eat it quite quickly. It doesn't keep very well because there's not an awful lot of fat in it. Well, there's no fat in it actually. But having said that, it's not really a hardship to eat fresh bread as it comes out of the oven. It's more a hardship to stop people eating fresh bread when it comes out of the oven. Here we go. I'm going to try and pull it into a square. Be careful though, because your nails will go very quickly through bread if you're not careful. I'm going to put some fillings in to make it really yummy. So I have here some onion which I've cooked down, sort of caramelised, and I'm just going to spread it on. I probably won't use all of that onion because that's quite a lot of onion, but we'll see how we go. Here we go, spread it right up to the sides Otherwise, a couple of people, when they tear and share, won't actually have anything in theirs. And then the other ingredient I'm going to put in is a little bit of grated cheese, not too much, but just enough to make it taste nice. You can put any topping you like in. Some people put pizza topping in, and that's quite nice. I'm going to put some cheese on. I'm going to save a little bit of the cheese to put on the top before it goes in the oven. Again, try and get it all over to make sure everybody gets some. Now what I'm going to do is roll it up. Because it's got a filling in, it's a good idea to lift and roll, lift and roll. Otherwise you might find that all your filling sort of shoots out. So it's like a big Swiss roll with a filling inside and the gap or the join on the bottom. Make sure it's nice and even. And then what we're going to do again is flour the palette knife, and I'm going to cut this into 8 in half. In half, in half, just keep cutting in half, and they should be even sized. Now, palette knife is the only knife that you ever use without a chopping board on a work surface. What I'm going to do now is get each piece of my Swiss roll that I've cut, my 8s, and I'm going to roll it into a perfect little round. And I'm going to put the first one in the middle. I'm going to roll the next one and put that to the side. I'm going to leave a little bit of a gap because obviously they're going to rise, and then once that's done, which is almost done, little bits of onion coming out, but don't worry about that, there's still plenty in there. As you can see, I'm just using a Victoria sandwich cake tin that I've greased, and I've actually lined it as well with a little bit of greaseproof paper. You don't have to, but I just find it all comes out a lot easier when it's lined and greased. Don't forget to grease the greaseproof to make it stick to the tin, but also grease the greaseproof so that your bread rolls don't stick. I've got the last of the cheese here, so I'm just going to put that over the top, and then I'm going to let that rise. It's going to take a little bit longer than the rolls. I would think about half an hour in a nice warm place, and then it'll be ready for baking. Here we are. Tear and share bread, ready for rising and baking. So, our poppy rolls now are risen and ready for the oven. You can tell they're risen because if you press your finger into the roll, the bread dough should just pop back out, which this is doing. I'm now going to put this in the oven for about 8 to 10 minutes. Here we have the tear and share bread, which has risen really well and is now ready for the oven. Now this is thicker than the poppy rolls and it has a lot of filling in it. So it took a little bit longer to rise, about 30-35 minutes. So now I'm going to put this in the oven for 25 to 30 minutes. So now I have my tear and share bread and my poppy rolls out of the oven. I can tell both are cooked by doing some simple tests. First of all, if we look at the poppy rolls, if you carefully turn over and bang the base, you will hear that they're hollow, which means that they're cooked. Also, they're a lovely golden brown colour. With the tear and share bread, that's a little bit more difficult, so really you just have to go to the time and the temperature. This has been in the oven for 35 minutes. The top is golden brown, and I'm crossing my fingers that the bottom is cooked, so we're about to find out. Okay, it's been out of the oven a little while, and I'm now going to turn it out. What I'm going to do is put a plate over the top and turn it out and take the tin off. And then I have some greaseproof paper on, which I greased really well, and I'm just going to pull it off, and yes, it is cooked. Result. So what I'm going to do now is turn it onto my cooling tray. And there you have it. Tear and share bread. As you can see, it looks very, very attractive, but a good way to make it even more attractive is to brush it with some melted butter. So here I have some melted butter on my pastry brush, and I'm just going to brush it on. And I have to say that I think this time I have really excelled myself. If you don't like onion much, you can just put cheese in, or pickle, or tomato, pizza topping, anything really. Or you could just brush it with butter and roll if you'd like a plain one. So there we have it, a simple bread mix. The tear and share bread is ready to tear and share, and the poppy rolls would be great with soup. Thank you for joining us. If you like this video, please remember to subscribe. See you next week in the Gig House Kitchen. Bye!